Think about the most respected person you know, not the loudest one in the room, not the one who always has an answer ready, the one who speaks less than almost everyone else. And yet, when they do speak, something in the room shifts. People lean in. Conversations pause. Their words land differently. You have probably felt this effect without ever being able to name it. And you may have also felt the opposite. That moment when you said too much, when you over-explained something that was already understood, when you filled a silence that did not need filling, and somehow, in doing so, you lost a little of the ground you were standing on. This is not about being quiet for the sake of it. This is about something much deeper. It's something your brain and the brains of everyone around you are doing in every conversation without either of you realizing it. And once you understand it, you will never think about your words the same way again. Here is where it starts. Every time you speak, the people around you are making assessments. Not consciously, not deliberately, but automatically. Their brains are running a rapid calculation. How much does this person trust themselves? And here is the part that most people never realize. The volume of your words is one of the strongest signals your nervous system sends about your own internal certainty. When someone over-explains, justifies constantly, or fills every silence, the brain of the person listening picks up a very specific signal: uncertainty. Not because anything wrong was said, yes, but because the behavior itself suggests the speaker does not fully trust what they are saying to stand on its own. And the brain of the listener, without any conscious decision, adjusts its trust calibration downward. This is evolutionary. For thousands of years, humans lived in groups where reading the internal state of others was a survival skill. Your ancestors needed to know quickly who was confident and who was bluffing, who was certain and who was afraid. The brain became extraordinarily efficient at reading these signals, and one of the clearest signals it learned to read was speech volume and frequency. The person who speaks rarely but decisively is signaling something important. I do not need to perform certainty. I have it. And the people around them respond to that signal, whether they mean to or not. Now here is where it gets more interesting. Silence is not passive. Most people experience silence as empty space, something to be filled, something slightly uncomfortable, a gap in communication that needs to be closed. But psychologically, silence functions as something very different. Silence is pressure, not aggressive pressure, not manipulation, but a kind of gentle, steady weight that invites the other person to fill it on their own terms. And the person who is comfortable sitting inside that pressure, who does not rush to relieve it, who lets it breathe, that person is communicating something the brain registers immediately. I am not anxious about what you think of me right now. And that is a rare signal, because most of us are anxious about it. Most of us have been taught in subtle ways, and that silence from another person means disapproval. That if we are not entertaining, engaging, and filling the space, we are somehow failing at connection. And so we talk more than we need to. We explain more than is required. We add sentences to conversations that were already complete. And every time we do, we spend a small amount of social credibility that is very difficult to earn back. Let me tell you something about the psychology of over-explaining specifically, because this is where many people lose the most ground without realizing it. Over-explaining is almost always rooted in one of two things. The first is anxiety about being misunderstood. The second is a need for approval that has not been fully examined. When you justify a decision that no one questioned, and your brain is reacting to a perceived threat that may not be real. When you add 3 extra sentences to a statement that was already clear, you are often responding to an internal discomfort rather than an external need. And the people around you can feel that, not because they are analyzing your behavior, but because their nervous systems are reading yours. And what they feel beneath the surface of the conversation is mild instability, a subtle signal that a person speaking is not entirely settled in what they are saying. Here is the trap this creates. The more you try to secure your position through more words, the less secure you actually appear. It is one of the quieter paradoxes of human communication. The attempt to be understood more fully through more explanation often results in being trusted less, because trust, at its neurological core, is not built through information transfer. It is built through the perception of groundedness, and groundedness is communicated almost entirely through what you do not say. Now, I want to talk about what actually happens in the brain of the person listening to someone who speaks with restraint. When a person speaks less than expected, the brain of the listener does something very specific. It begins to invest. Psychologically, we assign more value to things that are not freely available. This is called the scarcity principle, and it operates in social dynamics as powerfully as it does in economics. When words are rare, they carry more weight. When a person does not offer their opinion on everything, the opinions they do offer feel more considered, more deliberate, more worth listening to. The brain leans towards scarcity. And this is why the person who speaks carefully, who pauses before answering, who declines to fill every silence, often commands a quality of attention that louder voices rarely receive. There is also something happening at the level of emotional regulation. The ability to stay quiet when the impulse is to speak is not just a communication skill. It is a sign of internal regulation. And humans are deeply attuned to the regulation of others. We co-regulate constantly. When someone around us is dysregulated, our own nervous system begins to mirror that dysregulation. When someone around us is calm, steady, and not reactive, our nervous system begins to settle toward theirs. And the person in the room who speaks less, but with intention, is often the person who is setting the emotional tone without anyone noticing. Their calm becomes contagious. Their steadiness becomes grounding. And the respect that builds around them is not admiration for a strategy. It is the natural response of a nervous system finding something stable to orient toward. Here is the turning point I want to offer you. Learning to speak less is not about becoming someone you are not. It is not about suppressing yourself or performing mystery. It is about learning to trust that what you have to say is enough, without decoration, without extra justification, without the anxiety-driven additions that dilute the original thought. And most of us speak more than we need to because somewhere along the way, we learned that our words alone might not be enough, that we needed to convince, to explain, to entertain, to justify our place in the conversation. And that belief, once installed, is very difficult to question because it feels like protection. But what it is actually doing is costing you something. It is costing you the grounded quality that the people around you are quietly looking for. The practical shift is surprisingly simple. Not easy, but simple. Before you add the next sentence, pause just for a moment and ask, is this adding something, or is this filling a discomfort? If it is filling a discomfort, let the discomfort stay. Let the silence breathe, and notice what happens in the room. Not always, not perfectly, but over time, and the people around you will begin to experience you differently. They will find themselves more attentive when you speak, more curious about what you think, more inclined to lean in, not because you have become someone quieter, but because you have become someone who trusts that what they say is worth saying. And that trust, the trust you place in your own words, is the foundation of the trust others place in you. If this video gave you something to sit with, I would genuinely like to hear your thoughts. What do you notice in yourself when it comes to silence? Do you find it comfortable, or do you feel the pull to fill it? Leave that in the comments. I read every one. And if you know someone who speaks with that kind of quiet authority, share this with them. They probably already know all of this. They just did not need to say it. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.